Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our update, and a lot going on. I will start maybe with the Dow drop, because it's very, very suspicious. First it goes to 666 down, and now we're approximately 1,800 points down total. And that 666 thing, by the way, doesn't happen accidentally. I've watched that happen before, where they're manipulating the numbers to get what they want. And always remember, the occult plays by the numbers. Anyway, hi Larry, how you doing up there on the mountaintop?
Oh, hey, Stuart, it's staying cold, and had a little snow the other night, and it's having a little spit and snow tonight. Of course, you're probably worse off.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of snow every other day or so. We get another inch or 3 inches or whatever, and it's just cold and nasty, and I guess it's going to continue if the groundhog's telling the truth. And so I guess we're in for a siege. Anyway, getting to the stock market, what's your take on that? I was very suspicious, as we reported on one of our other shows, of that 666 number, that might be a warning for Donald Trump from the deep state. We control it because we control the economy. And we can do whatever we want, and we can pull the plug anytime we want. And then, of course, others are just saying, well, this is a correction. I know Yellen, who just retired, I guess, from the Fed, said that the market was way overvalued, I guess one could word it. What's your take on all this? I just take it as a possible warning.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stuart. I think the 666 number was a warning, and then immediately, and you've got to remember, the day 666 came out on the stock market, that was the day the memo came out from the Republicans, and since then, as the Democrats have been drafting their memo, their counter memo, I guess you could say, in this counter-coup war in Washington, D.C., there's a very interesting post, though. Fox News posted today, historic plunge. Dow drops more than 1,100 points at closing bell. Now, this is the important point, okay? It says erasing 2018's gains and inflation fears. And there was also some reports came out that said that there was a large move against Trump and his people, and what they were trying to do was literally overnight erase what they called the Trump bump, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think they were kind of watching the Trump team and the Republicans gaining ground with the tax decrease that he passed through. So people were beginning to feel it in their pocketbooks, and that would then, of course, translate into votes for the Republicans in the 18 November elections. But they could erase that overnight if they just pulled the plug, or even partially pulled the plug down and erase all the gains that Trump would have had. So that kind of verifies, I think, even more that 666 drop was, in fact, a warning. Look, we're going to do what we want to do, and you can only go so far. It seems like no matter what Trump does, he's wrong anyway. And now we have and I want to take your opinion on this one, too. How come all these Republicans, like even Trey Gowdy, are running for cover? They're getting out. They're just dropping off like flies. Do they know something we don't?
Well, what's kind of interesting, and as you were talking, I got to thinking about the movie Groundhog Day. You know, that's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, of course, we just had Groundhog Day the other day, of course, my birthday. And what was interesting is the fact that it seems like since Trump began to run for election, we are now in what I call a perpetual election. You know, you've seen these perpetual motion machines where you start it moving and it never stops. It's almost like there's an election going 24/7 every day. All America does is continually stay in an election process, and it's almost like a gateway to hell. Where does this end? When it goes over the abyss?
Yeah, I think so. What we've got, you know, when you got people like Trey Gowdy, whom I admire, he seems to be very neutral, and I mean, I've read a lot of stuff about him that they don't like him, but he seems very impartial and very much an investigator. In fact, I was watching, what do they call that? Something Files, and they had Trey Gowdy on when he was a prosecutor on a murder case. And I guess he's going back into the judicial system itself. But he made a comment that is kind of frightening. He said, all of my heroes are gone. And when you really stop and analyze that somebody like Trey Gowdy would make a remark like that of what's really going on in Washington, it's kind of scary. It's frightening. All my heroes are gone. So he has nothing left, I guess.
Yeah,
What's
he also made a statement today on Fox. He was talking, and he said, I'm going back to where, into a courtroom where they welcome the truth, not lies. And he said in the political system in America, they don't want the truth. They don't want the truth to come out, and they don't want to hear it. And he said, I'm going back to where I'm more comfortable, being around the truth rather than the lie. So I think he's given hints and clues what is really going on in America and how the political system stinks to heaven.
Well, that would kind of confirm what Trump said, that the whole thing is just a disgrace and that people should be ashamed of themselves, but they can't even blush anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where you are. Here's a headline, though, that's kind of interesting, referring back to the stock market. U.S. stock market hits two-year low. Global crash may be imminent. There isn't even a plan A. Experts have warned that an economic crash may be imminent after U.S. stocks dropped to a two-year low on Friday, but this time the crash would be massive and go global. Experts such as Peter Schiff have been warning that the U.S. stock market is nothing but a gigantic bubble that's set to burst at any time. While the tax cuts may have delayed the inevitable, the global financial crisis could be about to unfold. So I guess you can look at it, well, this is just something. I guess tomorrow and through the week will determine whether there's a recovery or a continued downslide. I do remember that, what was his name? David Wilkinson said that the market was going to go poof, and it would start to slide, and then they'd figure out, well, maybe we can fix it, but they couldn't, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I do remember that Noyes, that ne'er-do-well, erstwhile Native American prophet, said that the stock market was going to go to zero. It would totally crash. Now, she didn't put a date on it. She didn't say when, any more than David Wilkinson put a date on it. He just said that was going to happen. And that, so we are in very erratic times. And if this is really a war against Trump, do you think they've declared all stops out now to get rid of him no matter what? I'm beginning
I really
to get
think
that.
They have. Yeah, I really think they have, and the reason I say that is I wanted to add, though, what you were talking about, not only the stock market doing something weird, but General Jack Keane was on a while ago on Lou Dobbs, And he brought out again the fact to the American people that he said, while most Americans think that their military is in the process of being rebuilt, if you don't mind, look at the real truth. And he said, what the truth is we continually over and over and over have another move for a few more weeks or another month or whatever, continuing the resolution. And he said, that's not a rebuilding. That's not any more money at all applied to anyone. He said, we're operating off of 2017 or the last administration's levels. He said, nothing's being rebuilt. The American people are not being protected, and we have the lowest protection and security out there right now. Our military is at its lowest. And so that's very telling. And another thing I wanted to bring up too, Stuart, and mention, get your opinion on, there was a telling report came out today on Yahoo News. Now, I look at some real weird stuff for clues. But listen to this. This is the new Homeland. Remember they had delayed. Remember I told you about Homeland a year ago or so, where the new theme was that there was a president that no one liked, and they began a coup immediately to remove that president from to stop her from actually becoming president, as a candidate. And then remove her from office. Well, here's the new theme coming. They delayed Homeland for a year. Okay, February the 11th, Homeland premieres on Showtime. Listen to what this says. It says Homeland is going to be an interesting season 7, warns Alex Danza, and said with its 7th season to return February the 11th. Says Donald Trump is responsible for an administration at war with its intel agencies, and the saga continues. So I think that's a clue that they are planning on removing him from office, Stuart.
I don't think they've got any choice at this point. I don't think the American people, because they haven't paid any attention to much, realize how powerful deep state is, and how all these little filaments of interpersonal relationships in the state governance, and you also got them in the universities, they're in the pulpits, they're everywhere. And this is truly, as we have said many times, a communist coup, and Trump may or may not be able to stop it much longer. And I guess it all depends on the prayers of the Christians on Trump. Whether Trump is going to be, I don't know what you'd call him, a bulwark or something like that, where he's kind of a dam, and there are leaks springing up in this dam of Trump. And with all this stuff going on in the economy, and they can pull that plug, as I said, anytime they want. They can do it tomorrow morning. And it's overnight, and Trump is probably gone, because they'll blame it all on Trump anyway. Boy, quite a drop, though, today. It went down to 1,600 at one time, then it rebounded a little bit, back to 1175, I think it was, at the close.
Yeah, what's interesting, Stuart, is the fact that, as you said, we've all, most of us that really read the Bible and follow Isaiah 45 and the connection between Cyrus, et cetera, we realize that Trump is a window. He's not a door. He's a window of time. And, of course, I haven't seen the American people waking up. I mean, I keep thinking they'll get off their couch, but it don't appear to be so. And so, my concern is I really hope and pray that he will be a longer window of time than it appears. But how that works out, I don't know. But the interesting thing is that just before the show, I mentioned to you the fact that America is fixated on this smoke screen of Washington, D.C. and all the hoopla, while this world is actually in a process of World War III, and the American people don't seem to have a clue.
Yeah, and our military, just like you were saying, and Jack King was saying, we are down. I mean, we half of our airplanes don't even operate properly. So we're in a lot of trouble. If we get involved in any kind of a major war, if they don't pull out the plug of high-tech weaponry, particle beam, laser beam, microwave, or whatever they call that stuff, if they don't pull that out of the hat, we probably would be in serious, serious trouble. And so I guess we just wait and see. Speaking about war, and what is going on over there in Israel? Now, you've got a report, and I've interviewed the guy. In fact, you and I both interviewed him, Dan Gordon, who's with the Israeli Defense Forces. What is happening over there? It seems like they're getting ready to be attacked.
Yeah, well, you and I have been talking about this for 6 solid months, Stuart. We've been warning the people that a Middle East war was shaping up with Israel on one side and a bunch of folks on the other. And, Israel has been preparing for some time for this war, and especially since, and of course I won't go into all that, but, the pivot point that I'm talking about, the cosmic sign, and then the pivot point, which really seems to be Trump's focus as far as actually getting things done, to where he's surrounded by enemies, basically, and traitors in America. Overseas, he's actually getting things in focus for a Middle East movement and something with Jerusalem and Israel. But, we've been telling people, and I've been getting emails from people and talking to people that give me information that Israel was getting ready to go to war. And so we've been preparing for that, and so the people that listen to us ought to know this is where we're at, And then I got an email the other day from Dan Gordon, advising me to pray for Israel, said things were moving quickly and hot over there. And then, of course, a couple of days later, you and I are talking, and headlines begin coming out in media. Now, it's not mainstream America media, but it's world media. That, we've got the number 2 man from Iran, the Khamenei's main man, down in Lebanon and working with Hamas and Hezbollah and focusing forces towards Israel. And at the same time, we've got Turkey attacking the Kurds, and now Turkey is faced off with Russian forces and U.S. forces. And we've also got, Israel, threatening to, matter of fact, Netanyahu went to Russia and had a meeting the other day with Putin. And when Netanyahu came back, a whole team of Russians came to Tel Aviv and began to meet with Netanyahu to slow him down, because apparently he told them he was fixing to invade Lebanon and Syria. And he already had his military in focus for that. And now we're hearing that Israel is expecting a missile attack from Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza almost at any time, within hours or days, and they're prepared for that. And it won't be a pretty sight. I mean, this thing, actually the generals in Israel have already warned Lebanon, if you fire your missiles on us, we'll take you back to the Stone Age. And remember the threat, Stuart. You remember the threat that one of the generals made? He said this next Gaza war may be the very last one, and we'll solve that problem finally. And that reminds you of Henry Gruber's revelation on something that would happen, about this time.
Yeah, he was shown that, I guess, Israel goes in and eliminates everybody. They take care of the problem. Final solution, so to speak. And the world goes completely insane against Israel. And we know from Zechariah that something has to occur in Israel, not that Israel's loved by anyone already, but this is going to get a lot worse. And, of course, there's a big argument over who Israel is, and I just wish people would read their Bibles. Israel is there, according to Jeremiah. You go into it and read Jeremiah 15:51. You're going to find a statement in there about Israel and why Israel is there. And Israel is there, which is probably why people hate Israel with a passion for no reason, or at least they don't have any rational reason for it, is because Israel is there to bring down all the nations of the world. With thee, he says, I'm going to bring everybody down. Zechariah. With thee, Zechariah says, all the nations may be gathered against it, but they're going to get trounced. And people just don't want to accept that doesn't matter who Israel really is. You hear all those arguments, I'm sure, all the time about who Israel really is and who the Jews really are and who they are not, and blah, blah, blah. The point is, Israel is back as a nation, hated by the world. It's fulfilling the prophecies of the Old Testament prophets to the letter, and this war may be the start of it. If they're going to attack, like Hamas and the rest of them, they're going to attack Israel with a missile barrage, they would have to launch thousands of missiles, would they not? Are they going to try and preempt, do you think?
Well, I do know, Stuart, that there's no press in America particularly, but remember that actually Israel some time back had deployed missile defense batteries all across Israel and even brought out some of their stuff that were secret. And if you'll remember, just a few days ago, the United States, under Donald Trump, deployed an amount of American missile defense batteries all across Israel, and they're calling it a drill, but they're there to guard Israel.
Well, this thing could break out anytime, folks, and Israel is the center of all biblical prophecy for the last days. I mean, it just simply is, and whether people like it, don't like it, is totally immaterial, because God has his agenda, and Israel is the center of the whole thing, and it's designed to bring the nations of the world down. When you really stop and think about it, Larry, I mean, here's this little tiny strip of land, and there's this city called Jerusalem, and it likewise really has become a burdensome stone for the entire world. And yet they still don't get it, even though the Lord said, well, this is exactly what I'm doing. And he even explains why he's doing it. But I guess people just don't read the Bible or something. I'm not sure what's going on there.
And what's interesting, Stuart, too, and I'd like your opinion, there's been an occurrence, and you're aware of it because of Nikki Haley in the United Nations, but recently, not only has the UN came against Israel totally and anything dealing with Jerusalem, but the UN basically has declared Israel a terrorist country. And if you'll remember, Israel now has left UNESCO, or the actually,
yes,
you know, that part. And remember, Donald Trump and Nikki Haley has come out now and charged the UN, saying they are leaving too. So you've got these two countries, Israel and the United States under Donald Trump, separating from the UN in that for that reason, simply the burdensome stone.
Yes, and people should read the rest of the prophecies, because it doesn't really sound too good for humanity. And you would think they would be a little more careful in their handling of it, but obviously their hatred for the Bible itself is so great. Well, it's kind of like the hatred for Donald Trump. It doesn't matter what he does, doesn't matter how much good he does, doesn't matter how much he actually helps people. We got to hate Donald Trump. We got to get rid of Donald Trump. So I guess that's where it is. An Arab language London-based newspaper, Al Harat, I guess, reported Sunday that the leaders of Hamas and the Gaza Strip are calculating that the chances of war with Israel are now at the 95%, and assume that it's going to erupt within days. So I guess this is from the Arab press.
Yeah, this is coming out from the Arab press, and Standeo and WorldNet Daily and a few others have posted it now, and it's coming from the Arab side. So this war is leaking out, and Stuart, matter of fact, I actually was listening to Jack Keane earlier this morning and then this evening, and I mentioned to you that some of the press was shocked because General Jack Keane said that we're moving our troops in Iraq, U.S. troops out of Iraq, moving them to Afghanistan because we are going to have to confront the Taliban and those forces in Pakistan. And they said, what do you mean confront them, sanction them? And he said, no, destroy them. And they said, well, we can't go in and destroy, those places inside Pakistan. That'd cause a war. And General Jack Keane has asked both of them. He said, what makes you think we're not at war? Who told you we're not at war? We are at war. So, Stuart, my opinion is, why is it that the American press and most Americans are not understanding World War III is already being fought?
Yeah, it's going to explode here pretty soon, I think. The only question I have is, do we metamorphose this into a peace agreement, because they're still working on that, or do we have a major war and then a peace agreement? I favor a war before a peace agreement, but let's see, how do I word this? A major war where a lot of people are hurt and killed does something to the human psyche that wants to then declare peace. Right now they're just saying peace, peace when there is no peace. And so we'll just have to wait and see, folks. But this can break out any time, and the reports from Israel, as Larry just told you, are not good. So anything else you got before we close it down, Larry?
Well, let's see. I was trying to find my notes here. There's another interesting remark, too, today coming out of Europe. Assad apparently has been involved in another chemical attack inside Syria. And, of course, Donald Trump has his people focused on that and what response we might have. But at the same time, Assad has sent word through Europe to Israel, Netanyahu and Israel, that they are not going to tolerate foreign control over their borders. Now, what that means is, and Assad included Syria and Lebanon, that's actually, they're raising a red flag telling Israel, you can't even be on our border because we won't accept your control even on your side of the border. In other words, they're wanting the Golan. They're wanting, this is war. I mean, this is another red flag waved at Israel, and Israel appears to be about ready to go into Lebanon and Syria.
Yeah, well, there's sooner or later, either they're going to get attacked or they're going to preempt and try and bring this to a screeching halt. Here's another headline before we close out. Donald Trump on North Korea. We ran out of road. The road really ended. What is that about? Are they done now? With any more talk?
Well, Stuart, it appears that we're almost in a crisis of war with multiple fronts. And actually, Pence has taken this Warmier guy that, his dad, to the Olympic Games, and this is going to be a slap in the face to Kim. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, I don't know. What do you do? I mean, it's a chess game, and I think Trump is a superior chess player, but Putin's smarter than Trump is, and this can go any which way, and I think it just comes suddenly and virtually with no warning to the masses of people in the world. They don't see any of this coming down, and of course the American people are lied to by the mainstream press here, so we don't get to hear hardly any of that, and on it goes. Anyway, a lot for coming on, Larry, and we'll try to do something either Wednesday or Friday, and still fighting the flu or whatever it is, but thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. And do take the warnings of Israel from Israel very seriously. This can pop at any time. Anyway, thanks a lot, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you in the following. Good night, everyone.